There's a moment that changes everything. Not when you finally get what you want, not when your plan works out, but when you stop caring whether it does or not. Most people spend their entire lives in a state of constant worry about what comes next. What if this doesn't work out? What if I make the wrong choice? What if everything falls apart? And here's what nobody tells you. That worry, that obsession with controlling the future, that desperate need to know what happens next, it's the very thing creating the life you're trying to escape. Think about it. When you're anxious about tomorrow, where are you? Not here. When you're planning every detail of how things should unfold, what are you doing? Rejecting what is? When you're constantly checking, adjusting, controlling, you're telling reality, I don't trust you. I don't trust this. I need to grip tighter. And reality responds exactly how you'd expect. It grips back, it contracts, it closes doors. Not because it's punishing you, but because that's how the whole thing works. The tighter you hold, the more rigid everything becomes. I've watched this pattern in myself and in thousands of others. Someone wants something desperately. A relationship, a job, a breakthrough. They think about it constantly. They visualize it. They make plans. They check their phone every 5 minutes. They strategize. They worry, and nothing happens. Or worse, the opposite happens. Then something shifts. Maybe they get exhausted. Maybe they get disappointed one too many times. Maybe they just let go. Not in defeat. Not in giving up. But in a genuine, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. And suddenly, within days sometimes, within hours occasionally, everything changes. The call comes. The door opens. The person appears. The opportunity manifests. And they sit there thinking, where was this when I was trying so hard? It wasn't available then. It couldn't be. Because you were in the wrong state. You were in the frequency of lack, of fear, of control. And those frequencies can't access what you want. It's not a punishment. It's just how the architecture works. Here's what I've come to understand. Caring about outcomes is the biggest block to getting them. Not because caring is wrong, but because the kind of caring most people do is actually fear wearing a different mask. It's not love of the thing, it's terror of not having it. Real caring is light, it's open. It says, I'd love this, and I'm fine if it doesn't happen. Fake caring is heavy, it's tight. It says, I need this or I'll die. I must have this or I'm worthless. This has to work out or everything is ruined. And reality reads that frequency like a book. It sees the desperation. It feels the contraction. And it responds by giving you more of what you're broadcasting. More lack, more waiting, more disappointment. But when you genuinely stop caring what happens next, when you release your grip on how things should unfold, when you become okay with any outcome, everything shifts. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally stepped into the only state where things can actually move. Think about the best things that ever happened to you. Really think about them. I bet most of them came when you weren't trying, when you'd let go, when you'd moved on, when you were just living, not strategizing. That's not coincidence. That's the rule. The universe, life, reality, whatever you want to call it. It moves through openness, not through force. It flows through surrender, not through control. It enters through the gaps in your certainty, not through your rigid plans. Every spiritual tradition points to this. Every wise person throughout history has said some version of it. Let go, surrender, stop resisting, trust the process. But we don't listen because it sounds too simple, too passive, too much like giving up. But it's not giving up. It's the opposite. It's finally playing the game correctly. When you stop caring what happens next, you're not becoming apathetic. You're not checking out. You're becoming available. You're opening the channel. You're stepping out of your own way. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There's a huge difference between real surrender and what most people think surrender means. Most people think surrender is collapse, giving up, saying, "I don't care," while inside they're screaming with want. That's not surrender. That's suppression. And reality sees right through it. Real surrender is something else entirely. It's a kind of inner okayness that doesn't depend on anything external. It's when you genuinely reach a place where you think, if this happens, beautiful. If it doesn't, I'm still whole. I'm still here. I'm still fine. That state is rare. Most people never touch it because they're too busy white-knuckling their way through life. But when you do touch it, even for a moment, everything responds. Opportunities appear. People show up. Solutions emerge. Paths open that weren't there before. Why? Because you've changed your frequency. You've shifted from fear to trust, from contraction to expansion, from fighting reality to dancing with it. I remember the first time I really felt this. I'd been chasing something for months, working on it, obsessing over it, checking constantly for results. Nothing. Just more frustration and more evidence that it wasn't working. Then one day I just stopped. Not dramatically. No big decision. I just got tired. Tired of caring so much. Tired of the constant mental noise about it. I thought, you know what? If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'll figure something else out. I'm done exhausting myself over this. Within 3 days, everything I'd been trying to force into existence just appeared. Not because I'd earned it through suffering. Not because I'd finally proven myself worthy. But because I'd finally gotten out of the way. That's when I started noticing the pattern. Every single thing I'd ever received came when I wasn't gripping it. Every breakthrough happened after I'd released my death grip on the outcome. Every door opened when I stopped pounding on it, and I started seeing it everywhere. The person who gets the relationship after they genuinely stop looking. The entrepreneur who has their breakthrough after they stop desperately needing it to work. The artist who gets recognized after they stop caring about recognition. It's almost like reality is waiting for you to relax before it can give you what you want. Like a friend who won't tell you a secret until you stop begging them to. But here's what makes this tricky. You can't fake it. You can't pretend not to care while secretly caring desperately. Reality reads beneath the surface. It knows the difference between real peace and performed indifference. Real surrender has a feeling to it. There's space in it, lightness, an actual sense of being okay, regardless of outcome. Fake surrender feels tight. There's strategy in it. You're still gripping, just with different words. So, how do you get to real surrender? Not by forcing it. That's just another form of control. You get there by seeing clearly, by understanding that your worth isn't tied to outcomes, that your happiness isn't dependent on getting what you think you need, that life will continue. You'll be okay, even if this specific thing doesn't happen. When you really see that, not just intellectually, but in your bones, something relaxes. the obsession drops. The constant checking stops. You find yourself genuinely not caring as much about what happens next. And that's when everything changes, because now you're available for surprise. You're open to paths you hadn't considered. You're receptive to solutions you couldn't see before because you were too busy forcing your preferred solution. Think about water. It doesn't force its way downhill. It finds the path of least resistance. It flows around obstacles. It's patient, and eventually it shapes mountains. That's the power of non-resistance. That's what happens when you stop caring what happens next. Your life becomes like water, fluid, responsive, powerful in its gentleness, unstoppable in its surrender. Most people have it backwards. They think power comes from control, from knowing exactly what will happen, from having a plan and executing it perfectly. But real power comes from trust, from being okay with not knowing, from surrendering to what wants to emerge rather than forcing what you think should happen. This is the secret behind every apparent miracle, every perfect timing, every synchronicity. It's not magic, it's not luck. It's the natural response of reality to someone who's finally stopped fighting it. When you care desperately about what happens next, you're in a state of resistance. You're saying, this present moment isn't enough. I need the future to be different for me to be okay. And that state of resistance blocks flow. It blocks possibility. It blocks the very thing you're reaching for. But when you stop caring, when you become genuinely okay with whatever happens, you're in a state of acceptance. You're saying, this moment is complete as it is. I don't need anything to change for me to be whole. And that state opens everything. It opens your perception. You start seeing opportunities that were always there. It opens your energy. You stop wasting it on worry and control. It opens your life. Things can finally move and shift and rearrange themselves into new patterns. So here's what happens when you really truly stop caring what happens next. Not as a strategy, not as a technique to get what you want, but as a genuine shift in how you relate to life. First, you become present. Like, really present. Because you're not constantly leaning into tomorrow. You're not rehearsing conversations that haven't happened. You're not playing out scenarios in your head. You're just here in this moment, experiencing what is. And presence is magnetic. People feel it. Opportunities align with it. Reality responds to it. When you're fully here, life can actually reach you. But when you're scattered across 1,000 possible futures, there's nothing for life to connect with. Second, you stop making decisions from fear. Most of your choices up until now have probably been driven by, what if this doesn't work out? You take the safe job. You stay in the comfortable relationship. You don't take the risk because you're too worried about the outcome. But when you stop caring what happens next, you're free to make choices from a different place. From curiosity, from joy, from genuine preference rather than fear of consequences. And those choices lead somewhere completely different than fear-based ones. Third, you become available for the unexpected. Here's something wild. Most of what you want isn't going to come the way you think it will. The relationship won't look like you imagined. The opportunity won't arrive through the channel you're watching. The breakthrough won't happen via the method you've been forcing. But you'll never see the actual path if you're too busy staring at your imagined one. When you stop caring how it happens, you become available for how it actually wants to happen. And that way is usually better than anything you could have planned. Fourth, you stop exhausting yourself. Do you have any idea how much energy you spend on worry? On planning? On controlling? On checking? On strategizing? It's like running a marathon every day inside your own head. When you stop caring what happens next, all that energy becomes available for actually living. You sleep better. You think clearer. You have bandwidth for creativity, for connection, for experiencing life rather than constantly trying to manage it. Fifth, and this is the big one, you become yourself, not the anxious, controlled, strategic version of yourself, your actual self, the one underneath all the worry. And that self is magnetic in a way the worried self never could be. People are drawn to people who aren't desperate. Opportunities come to those who don't need them. Love finds those who are already complete. It's backwards from what we've been taught, but it's true. I've seen people transform their entire lives by making this one shift. Not by getting better at controlling outcomes, not by manifesting harder or visualizing more, but by genuinely letting go of needing to know what happens next. The entrepreneur who was grinding, struggling, forcing, stops caring about making it big, and suddenly things click. The person who was desperately seeking love stops caring about finding someone and meets their person. The artist who was obsessed with success stops caring about recognition and their work finally connects. It's not that caring is wrong. Care about your work. Care about your relationships. Care about your life. But stop caring about controlling the outcome. Stop caring about guarantees. Stop caring about knowing exactly how it will unfold. Do your best, then release. Create beautifully, then let go. Love fully, then trust. Move powerfully, then surrender to what wants to emerge. This is how masters live, not controlling every variable, not needing certainty, but fully engaged while completely unattached. Present with everything, identified with nothing. Playing the game with full intensity while knowing it's just a game. And here's what nobody tells you about this state. It doesn't mean you stop acting. You don't become passive or lazy or indifferent. If anything, you become more active, more creative, more alive, because your actions aren't coming from fear anymore. They're coming from freedom. You're not doing things to avoid a bad outcome. You're doing things because they feel right, because they're interesting, because you're curious where they lead. And actions taken from that place have a completely different quality. They work differently. They create differently. So what does it actually look like to stop caring what happens next? It looks like doing your work without obsessing over results. It looks like having conversations without needing them to go a certain way. It looks like making decisions based on what feels true rather than what feels safe. It looks like going to bed at night without replaying the day or rehearsing tomorrow. It looks like facing uncertainty with curiosity instead of fear. It looks like being okay with not knowing, not controlling, not being able to predict. And it feels like freedom. Not the freedom of getting what you want, but the freedom of being okay regardless. Not the freedom from responsibility, but the freedom to respond authentically rather than strategically. When you're in this state, synchronicities multiply. Not because you're manifesting them, but because you're finally available to notice them. Doors open that were always there, but you couldn't see them because you were too focused on the door you thought should open. life starts feeling less like a battle and more like a dance. You're still fully engaged, but you're following the music rather than trying to control it. You're still creating, but you're co-creating with what wants to emerge rather than forcing your agenda onto reality. And the wildest part? The things you wanted when you were desperately caring about them? Many of them show up. Not all of them, because some of them you only wanted from fear. But the real ones, the true desires underneath the fear-based grasping, they find their way to you. Not because you earned them through suffering, not because you manifested them through technique, but because you finally became available for them. You got out of your own way. You stopped blocking the flow with your desperate need to control it. This is what every teacher has been pointing to with different words. Surrender, trust, let go, stop resisting, be here now. They're all describing this same shift, from trying to control what happens next to being okay with whatever happens next. And that shift changes everything, not because it makes life perfect, but because it makes you free. Free to live fully, free to love completely, free to create authentically, free to be yourself without the constant weight of needing things to go a certain way. So what if you stopped caring what happens next? Not in defeat, not in apathy, but in genuine trust, in real surrender, in authentic freedom. What if you just did your best and let go? What if you loved fully without needing guarantees? What if you created beautifully without obsessing over outcomes? What if you lived completely without needing to know how it all turns out? Everything would change. Not the external circumstances necessarily, though those often shift too. But you would change. The way you experience life would transform. The weight you carry would drop. The constant low-grade anxiety would dissolve. And in that space, in that openness, in that freedom, life could finally reach you. Not the life you planned, the life that wants to live through you. The one you couldn't see because you were too busy trying to control it. That's when everything changes. Not when you finally get what you want, but when you stop caring whether you do. If this video shifted something in you, write in the comments, "I trust what comes next." Write it as your promise to yourself. Nobody,